A very good afternoon. Thank you for attending today's NBS Knowledge Lab webinar. The theme is navigating social entrepreneurship through impactful problem solving. We have two speakers, Ted and Ivy. Both are NTU alumni and also our Entrepreneurship alumni. This webinar will be recorded for our informational, educational, and marketing purposes. The recording will be hosted on YouTube and made available for viewing on our website. A write-up on the session will also be made available to the viewers, together with the recording. The copyright of the recording and the write-up should belong to NTU. Let me do a quick intro to the first speaker, Ted. Ted Chen is a co-founder and the CEO of Evercom Singapore, which is one of Asia Pacific's fastest growing sustainability AI companies in the clean tech sector. Evercom is an enterprise Singapore scale-up company and also accredited by the Infocom Media Development Authority. The company works closely with the United Nations and the governments worldwide to pad industry-scale sustainability and transformation initiatives. Ted received the NTU's Nanyang Outstanding Young Alumni Award and entered Forbes' inaugural 30 under 30 Asia list. Now, Ted, please.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. Let me quickly share my screen so everyone can see. Hi all, my name is Ted. I'm the co-founder of Evercom, as briefly mentioned, and I'm very happy to be here today to share about, how can we really approach the social problems and how can we embark on social entrepreneurship maybe in a more effective manner. Because for myself, I've been in not so much the social industry, but sustainability also related to this in a way or two, and then we have really over the years learned how to better approach these larger challenges in a much more effective manner. So hopefully today I can share some of these insights over the year, and then maybe help some of these new entrepreneurs who want to embark on the social scene to have an easier starting head start. So I think we now, if you look at the world as we speak, when I first started the company almost 10 years ago, this used to be the belief that people think you can either do good or you can do well. And these two back in the days, and even maybe nowadays, many people still don't think these can achieve in parallel. So people often think in business, these two are at the two extremes. But I think over the years, we started to see, or people started to believe that, okay, it's actually not at the linear fashion, it's actually more on the Y and X axis. So one example is maybe the one that you see where you're doing very well, but you're not doing too good to the environment, to the world. That could be, some companies that are polluting the world, but making money from those products. So that can be something in the middle where they might not be doing too well for the world, but they're doing well for the company. And on the most extreme bottom right, you can see some of these dots can represent a social enterprises or a social venture where they're doing good, but they might not be doing well financially speaking. So this has always been the paradox of people think different types of company exist. And I think for today, the idea is to share with you all, how do we really get here, right? I think especially from 2 years ago, when the world started to focus more and more on ESG, environmental, social governance, I think now we have moving into a paradigm where we can actually start companies that is actually both doing well for the world that we live in and also doing good from the financial stakeholder perspective. So hopefully today we can give some insights about how to get the company better positioned for this particular point that we see here on the screen. One disclaimer, there are many sessions involved to actually explain how do we get there. And what we're doing here for the next 1 hour is really a very condensed version of it. So bear in mind, we're skipping a lot of the details, but hopefully we have gotten enough out so that people can know how to get it started. And along the way, if there are questions, feel free to post it, and then we'll be happy to see how to address. So maybe I will start the discussion from a definition of what is social entrepreneur, because I think this is fundamentally a very different approach compared to traditional entrepreneurship. When I was under the TIP program, the MSc TIP program, I remember we learned a lot about traditional entrepreneurship. But over the years, I realized that there's one fundamental differences between usual entrepreneurship versus social entrepreneurship. I think is that social entrepreneurship tend to focus more on solving community-based problems, right? These are for your environment, these are for your ecosystem you live in, and so on. Whereas entrepreneurship usually just focus on solving a particular problems, whether it is community, whether it is in your environment. That could be depending on the problem and the preference of the founder. But usually, social entrepreneurship always focusing on solving community problem first, and then what they're trying to do to measure success, rather than just pure financial indicators and investors responses, is mostly on the positive change they make in society through their initiatives. So I think these two are the fundamental differences point that we see a social entrepreneurship slightly different from just your traditional entrepreneurship. But many of the business aspect of the thing still holds the same, just that the focus on community-based problem with the KPI of positive change in society are the major differences, I would say, between traditional entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. And many people have asked me along the years, they're interested to start a company. What should they do? Or some of them will come to me and say, there are many problems already solved. So what would be a good problem to solve? And I will always like to point it out that the reason I say that in the current era, it's actually possible to do well for the company, but also do good for the environment, is because if you look at the sustainability development goals, this is for Asia Pacific reporting by the United Nations. We are actually not on track on many of these goals. And these goals are quite important for every country. That's why it is now possible to really align doing good and doing well together, because these are all the urgent challenges that even country leaders are looking into. Business leaders, country leaders are all looking into this. So maybe with this, I will get into a simple polling first, just to get a census of how everyone feels about these subjects. And then I can better shape the discussion from there. I will launch the first poll. Just not sure if everyone can. Yeah, you should be able to start to see your screen on the first poll. When we are dealing with the complex community problems, do you think we should focus on problems or we should focus on solutions? Because if you look from these diagram, right, by right, we know all these problems. There's poverty, there's hunger, these are all the problems. So should we focus on problems or should we focus on solutions? Let me quickly get the poll in just to see what people feels, because this will be very important for us to shape the discussion down the road. Okay, I think we have more than, give it maybe 2 more seconds. We have 70% participations, almost 80, I think is good enough. Let me end the poll. Oh, we have 80%, good. So let me end and share the results so everyone can see. I think it's good. We have a quite even, I would say, 47, 53, not too dramatic, not put difference. In my later slides, I will share with you how we view on this. And one last quote before I get into the topic as well. Quick check with everyone. How many of you have actually heard about the UN SDGs? Just a quick poll. Are you aware or are you not aware? Okay. Very good. So yeah, so as the poll progresses, I think most of the people, more 64% of the people are actually aware of the SDGs, which is good. But there's still 38%, 36% not so much aware of SDGs. So this is something that I will encourage most of you, if you're interested in social entrepreneurship, definitely look into the SDGs report published by the United Nations, especially if you live in this region. That's actually quite important because many of the challenges that you want to solve, it's more or less identified there. And then within the SDG report, they actually tells each countries what are their priorities and what are the areas that they're really struggling. So if you can focus on solving those problems in your community, it will be much easier for you to mobilize resources, get awareness, get attractions, and so on. So this is something that I would advise as an easy first step for many of the entrepreneurs who wants to attack the social challenges. So getting into the main differences between complex and complicated problems, because we talk about social entrepreneurship generally focuses on community-based problems, community-based challenges. It's really important to understand the differences of complex problems versus complicated problems. Just to give you an example, complicated problems are typically, engineering problems that, it can be as complicated as building electric vehicles or taking a spaceship to the moon and so on. These are very complicated problems. But if you assemble a correct teams with the domain experts, and if you systematically break down all the issues, you can manage and solve the issues. And typically for traditional entrepreneurship, we focus on solving complicated problems. But almost majority of the time when you're working on social challenges, these are actually complex problems. And if you want to approach complex problems with complicated solutions, it's almost bound to failure from day one. I can give an example for that. These are, when you talk about socials, if you're talking about education, if you're talking about environmental issues, if you're talking about poverty, right? These are things even governments are struggling. So if as an entrepreneur, you went in and trying to attack it with many experts, treat it as a complicated systems, it will take a very long time and you might not even make progress, right? So this is really the main challenges, the tool sets that we need when we want to approach social entrepreneurship, is to really understand how can we handle complex systems. And in a nutshell, in complex systems, you can only manage, you cannot solve. So what we can do is really to figure out what's the best place to position the problems. So it is easier for us to involve people to get involved. It is easier for us to mobilize resources. We might not be able to solve the problem, but we can at least channel and attract more resources and put it into the problems and to be able to make progress. So the whole idea of a social entrepreneurship is we should focus on making progress, not about solving the issue, because it is not something that you can really solve in a matter of even if you give 5 to 10 years, you still might not be able to solve the issue at all, but you can definitely improve the situation. So I think this is really a fundamental differences when we talk about complex and complicated problems. And the framework that we'll be sharing here is, it's really about, just now we talk about, is it really focused on problems or solutions? I think it's definitely both, but we really need to start from having a really, really good understanding of the problems. So one of the first part when you want to approach from a theoretical approach to talk about understanding social entrepreneurship is usually you want to start with problem constructions, right? And these are some of the guiding questions that I have for the team. And I will run through one example so everyone has a better understanding of how to use these questions to help you get to an answer. It's really important to start with problem construction. So you can see what is the problem, why does it matter, who does it matter to, and what will the problem look like when it's solved. And after you finish all these 4 questions, refine these 4 questions, It's really this precise problem statements in one sentence, what you're trying to arrive at. And the more precise problem statements you can arrive at, the easier for you to use the other tools later to start to come up with a strategy to approach these complex social challenges. So I'll give you an example from here. So this is what I mentioned, you keep iterating the process. But one example I have here is many of the entrepreneurs that I talk in this region, they really like the topic of education, talking about education and so on. So I thought it would be good to use the real education challenges in one of the foreign countries. So if you want to solve education, the first real problem they face originally starting the point is, despite all the money being invested into K-12 education systems, they see the student performance still did not improve. So this was the original problem statements that this team came up with and wanted to resolve. But when you start to ask, why does it matter, right? And then we start to analyze, why does it matter? Reason is because taxpayer monies are being spent on these infrastructures and systems. Public resources are being pulled into there. It's not producing enough employment talents for the communities, for the cities, for the country, and so on. So you started to understand why does it matter. And these why does it matter slowly will help you further understand who is your stakeholders and so on. And then when you start to ask the next question, who does it matter to? Definitely government, school, parents, students, taxpayers, and so on, right? And then finally, the idea of what will the problem look like when it's solved, right? The ideal situation is when governments spend their budget, it should correlate positively to the student results in their education system, right? And with all these, you keep refining. The final statements that this team come up with is teachers are not trained with the quality required to promote students learning in K-12 education. So you can really see from the first initial problem until this statement, it really takes a lot of refinement to get to that. But once you have this particular statements, then you can start to really deconstruct the problems. This is what we talk about fishbone diagrams in the social challenges settings. In a nutshell, it's really about you keep asking why. Usually by the time you ask your fifth why, you can really break it down into the problem. So for the K-12 education problems that you see, once you ask enough why, you see the fish head here. This is the problem that we talk about. Teachers are not trained with the quality required to promote the student education. And that's why even when monies are being spent into these education system in that country, they don't see an improvement in students' performance. And when they start to ask why is that, you can see they started to understand practice, student practice, teacher curriculum, professions, teacher training at the universities, the well-being of the teachers, so you can start to see the social challenges unravel with all these different layers. And that's why I mentioned it's really about managing these kind of complex problems. It's not about solving, because there's not even a government, the resources the government have can address all these problems or can solve this problem. So as a social entrepreneurs, it's very important for you to identify this through this iterative process. And what you're trying to arrive at the end of the day is to have a clarity on this and be able to start to see which of this point is your entry point to start to make a difference. Just pick one areas which you feel you can actually do something about it. So one of the example I use is, if you want to start to mobilize resources, you need to really understand whether do you have the authority in this place, or do you have the support from the authority in this place to do something? Do you have the community acceptance? Like say for the teachers problem, do I have government's approval or authority that wants to solve this problem? Do I have the teacher acceptance to work with us to be able to address this issue? And finally, does my team have the ability to help the teachers and help the government also to resolve this issue? It's very important for the social entrepreneurs to understand and really analyze these 3 points sincerely, because what happens when you start to match it, only if you have a good overlapping of these threes, then it becomes a problems you can have an entry point and start to work on. Because many social entrepreneurs I see is that they are working on a particular problem that they don't even have an entry point. This is where even fundraising, engaging the communities and so on will become even a lot more difficult. So this is what it looks like at the high level. When you start to look into each of these specific problems, you will start to identify which areas you have a good overlap of authority, your own abilities and acceptance from the people that might want this problem to be resolved. There could be cases where even the people you want to help, they don't want to get help. This is the real challenge of a social entrepreneur. So it's really important to understand where is that sweet spot overlaying where you can actually make a difference. So particularly for this team, they really start with teacher training at university. They feel that is an area that they can make a difference, as well as practices, how to improve the practices for these teachers. And the rest of the problem, which they don't have an overlay yet, they just simply put it aside first and then continue to look for the sweet spot over the years, right? So this is just an example of how important it is to find an entry point for complicated social problems and to find something that you can start your first step towards. And I'll wrap it up with a very simple example before I pass it over to Ivy for more case study to share with you all on this. So this was the refined problem statements from one of the friends, right? The problem was that despite Thailand being the #1 rice exporter, their farmers consistently are one of the poorest in the region. And then if you look down, how he managed to refine his problem is the guy in the middle, this is the entrepreneurs, he actually spending time and really spend time with these farmers and to understand their problems and so on, and start to construct the different areas where he can make a difference, or he can at least try to make a difference. And where he finds out is with his skill set, he can actually be able to brand these farmers better. So he pulled these farmers together and using simple tools to help them start to grow organic rice and so on. And using his skill set in the social media and marketings and so on, he started to create a brand for these farmers. And then purely only using social media to generate awareness for these farmers. And the end result of that, although it sounds simple, based on just this one thing that he do, is actually getting into different distribution channels around the world. And if you look from an impact perspective, before he engages farmers, many of them are in debt, right? But after he have done this over 3-4 years, he started to help a community of farmers to have their own land and most importantly, get out of debt, right? And then he's still on this mission to help more farmers, expand this community and so on. So this, I think, is a really good simplified example of how once you simplify the problem, you can move over from there. And this is usually what the process will look like. It's really about having a lot of discussions with different peoples to really figure out, what is the sweet spot that all of you can pull resources together to move towards a particular problem. So with this theory, I will pass it over to Ivy, and then we can have a Q&A later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ted. Within about 20 minutes, you have succinctly introduced the concept of social entrepreneurship, the framework, with a couple of very convincing examples. So the next speaker will be Ivy Wu. Ivy is a co-founder and the chief marketing officer of FOMPT Singapore. She is a successful entrepreneur with a passion for innovation in consumer electronics. With over 7 years of experience in marketing and branding, Ivy has launched multiple award-winning global product campaigns, including a CES Best of Innovation Award. Ivy played a crucial role in the expansion of China-based consumer electronics startup XGMe, which went public on the Shanghai Stock Exchange in 2021. This year, Ivy co-founded FOMPT, a 3D printing service-oriented company that supports the design and the manufacture of next-generation consumer electronics and medical products. By the way, allow me to mention that driven by the social entrepreneur passion, both Ivy and Ted are currently completing a public policy executive program at Harvard University's Kennedy School. Without further ado, Ivy, please.
Thanks, Dr. Chuck. And thanks for having me here. I'm Ivy, and nice to meet you all. So today in my session, I will share 2 interesting cases and 1 example from my study experience in Harvard University. to illustrate the very first point of a process we call PDIA. What is PDIA? So PDIA is actually what we learn in Harvard University in our implementing public policy course. It's a problem-driven iterative adaptation. So it is a very useful approach to help us to solve a complex problem. So we need a team when we face a complex problem. We need a team, we need a team to work together on this problem, and we learn along the way, and to use our new learned knowledges to plan for our next step in this journey. But in today's my session, I don't have time to go through all, but I will focus on the very first step, initial step, which is constructing your problem. Why constructing your problem is very important. In PDIA learning, so we want to find a problem which is not about delivering a prepackaged solution, because a lot of time people will misunderstand the solution. They will think the solution is actually, lack of the solution is the problem. So instead, we need to begin to find and identify a real problem that really matters. So first of all, problem isn't a lack of solution. Let's imagine when you want to find a social problem or a problem that you think there is the problem you can solve to start, and then you have a product or service to start your business, but oftentimes it's actually a lack of your solution. Let me give you a very interesting example I found in my class. So Tiago is actually my classmate, and he is a university teacher, is a professor at teaching mathematics. So the first version of his political or the policy problem was the student in rural city in Brazil have poor writing skills, as teachers are not able to provide enough feedback on students' assignment. This problem actually attracted a lot of attention from our classmates because it's quite confusing at the beginning. So which level of the student they are? They're primary school or university students, and what does it mean by poor writing skills? Does poor writing skill means that student they can't structure sentences, or they can't even have the comprehension to understand the question and to answer the question? So this problem we found is very interesting. Then after we dig deeper into this question problem, then we realize there are a lot of other problems hiding behind the scene. The students always need to work for their families or taking part-time jobs after school because they need to contribute on their family incomes in these rural cities. And the teachers also need to do multiple jobs. They're a teacher, they are a primary school teacher in the morning, and they can be a driver in the afternoon and also a chef at night. So they take multiple jobs. Of course, they don't have the time to really giving feedback on students' assignment, and they are not dedicated on this one job. And after that, we realized that also the local government is not paying enough attention to the education in rural city as well. And we found out his solution, he and his team already have the solution, is to build up an application that can help the student to scan their assignment and give immediate feedback on their spelling or grammar mistakes. And this is an application he already have, and to help solve the problem. So after we know all those deep context, does the poor writing skill of the student still the real issue? Maybe not. This may be just one of the lack of his solution. So in other words, after all those context we found from his case, then maybe in rural Brazil, many students are falling behind in their learning due to the economic pressure, and with the family and the teacher prioritizing their immediate income over the education. They are less focused on the children's education and economic growth. So this new, because he's also changing and iterate his problem, he realized that that was not the fundamental problem he's facing right now. So he kept like editing his problem until this version. And based on this problem, he can do a lot of things. Other than this, not only a application, but building an application can be one of the entry points for him to solve a bigger problem. But based on this problem, he can do more, and his team can do more. So in the class, the professor always have a small tip for us to understand whether we are finding a problem or we are finding a solution. It's if you can't imagine like a 3 alternative solution to a problem, you don't really have a problem. So if you already have a solution, you won't open your mind and you open your eyes to think other like a positive like other options or alternative solutions. So, but why does finding like a problem really important? Because if your problem is lack of a solution, you can really like never be creative enough to solve the problem you really can do. Okay, so here is another example. This is a real example I'm going to share for today. Yuka is a application. If you can, it's not in Singapore yet, but it's very famous in Europe and in UK, and it's also expanding to the US. So Yuka is basically an application. They can help you to scan the barcode of any food and also the cosmetics products. Once you scan the food, and you will see a score at the right side, as you can see on the screen. So it will give you the point out of 100, and it will give you a color ranging from the red to green, and to tell you whether the product is healthy to your, is good to your health and also good to the environment. They also tell you like what criteria they're taking into and give the score. And also their mission is to help the customers to make better choice. And there is a lot of uninformed choices are made every day. People tend to repeatedly purchase the same products, although there is like any other good options. And also they are trying to give more power to the consumer and giving more pressure to the manufacturers and to ask them provide better products and use like a better ingredients on their products. They're also doing great, very great on the independency. They don't get any external influence. They don't work with any other brands, and they do ads free. So there you can't see the ads, where even when they recommend the products, when the product is really bad, after you scan the barcode, they will automatically like also independently recommend you a product, alternative products. But this is also independent from any other influence externally. And also they protect the user's data very well. But how they make the profit? They make the profit from the premium version that providing more features. Like you can search the products without scanning, and also the offline mode. And they're selling eating guide as a book, and also calendar for seasoning food and seasoning vegetables to the audience as well. But why they want to pay this amount of money? Like I think after the sharing, I really highly recommend you to take a look at their website. Their website is really showing how they make the profit, like completely transparent, and also how their business starts, what problem is solving, how they remain themselves independently, and also the real story is how this app is changing people's life when and changing their behavior when they buy in products. So a lot of people, they support the application right now. And because Yuka is already considered very successful, now we look back to their problem, how they construct their problem at the beginning. So there are 2 problem statements. So I kindly ask you guys to give maybe write 1 or 2, answer 1 or 2. Do you think which one is better problem statement in the chat box. Can I see the chat box? One. Let's give another 10 seconds. One. So most of you are choosing one. Great, great. Thank you. Thank you for the interaction. Yes, the number one is a better problem statement. And why the number two is the worst one? Because they actually simplify the problem to the speed problem of accessing the product information, which is the solution of application, right? So the first one actually giving like a more imagination how the business can be more sustainable and more services and products they can provide. Let's imagine if the second one is their problem statement at the beginning, probably Yoka won't actually remain their independency as what they're doing right now, because they're providing a free service for the customer to scan the barcode and get to know the information about products and then choose the right products. They may think, okay, at the same time, then I should work with the brands, and even like, because they're good products, I can recommend them to you. So if building a product, building an application to solve the specific problem, it's the problem at the beginning for them. They may not have a very successful and a sustainable business like what they're doing right now. Okay, let's go through, as Ted talked about, there are a few factors we need to work through and to construct our problem. So if we have the problem, we should keep asking why does it matter? And in the why does it matter part, we need to ask like at least 3 times. Each time we go deeper and deeper. So like uninformed choices may cause like the customer buy a negative, like bad products, and which create a negative impact on their immediate health. And also it will create like a long-term health problems that will like really have a bad impact on individual lives and also healthcare system. And eventually, if the population are keep buying like by poor consumption choices, and they may impact people's productivity and quality of life, and also even the national economy stability. So it seems too big for us, but we need to go like each layer deeper to dig down. Why does it matter? Why does it really matter to the society, to the people? And who does it matter? Like individuals, family, household, like healthcare providers, and also government. But who should care more? Like if I am a manufacturer, I really care about this, because one of the articles says the Yuka really create a huge impact on people's purchase process in a grocery store. So before they have like having Yuka, they will just go to the grocery store to grab whatever they purchase like normally, repeatedly, or they just look at the label and comparing based on their knowledge, like limited knowledge, and then grab one they think the best for their life and for their household. But right now, if they have Yuka, the first step is to scan the barcode and to see whether the product is healthy or not to their body and to the society and to the environment. If not, I would choose the alternative. And Yuka will also recommend alternative products. And I will probably look at whether the grocery store is carrying these products right now. So how actually Yuka is getting attention from those stakeholders? They share the data. That's why I recommend you to go to their website and take a look. They share their story, they share the data. There are more than 40 million users right now. And they cover 12 countries the Yuka are available right now. And also there are 4 million products in the database. If you are a manufacturer, if you are creating products, so cosmetic products or food products, are you going to submit your products to Yoka? I think probably yes. As well as they're sharing the stories of the real people, like reviews, and how the yoga changed their life and help them to solve their health problems and lose weight. So this is how yoga and how like showing their power to the public and to media, and also giving pressure to the stakeholders and the manufacturers to ask them provide better products to the society. Okay, the second cases I want to share, this is a very interesting case. I'm working with them right now. I'm one of the partners. Let me show you a short video and to let you know what's the products and what their concept. Okay, thanks for watching. So we are actually giving the second life of the waste, and especially I can't really imagine before I made them. I can't really imagine like we can use the bicycle inner tube to make products like this. And yeah, since we have limited time, so let's look at the problem statement 1 and 2 again. Please give me your answer. Which one do you think is a better problem statement, 1 or 2? Give 5 more minutes, or 5 more seconds. Thank you guys for interacting with me. Exactly, the second one. Why the second one is better? Because it actually combined two problems into one problem statement. One is there are like improper disposal of the non-biodegradable waste that actually cause the environmental issue. The second is, although there are a lot of sustainable products offered in the market, but it doesn't really align with the younger generation taste. That's why it resulting in a low consumption. So it combines two problems together, but also they can use one or more solutions to solve the problem. But the first one actually limits the business, either is a business model or as a social entrepreneurship, to establish bag to the specific products and the specific material they can use, but not as big and as like a bigger, like imagine than the second one. So I don't really have time to go through all of it, but I think I will mention the stakeholders, because I think it's pretty interesting. It's like the local government are now pay more attention on the rubber recycled because they realize actually it can be repurposed because it's more like a skin. When you touch it, it's really like skin. You can use that to build like shoes or bags and other fashion items that really like easily be adopted by the young generation in China and also other countries globally. And we are also like having more local community events, like we're holding with different communities, different sports clubs, and to share our the concept and the spirit of saving the environment by to dispose less waste and also repurpose all those waste into something that's really cool and fashionable and you can use it every day. So it's been very popular in China, and if you are interested, you can check the ucshop.com, ucshop.com. So last but not least, this one quote I really love is a problem well stated is a problem half solved. So hope everybody can really find the problem, find the fundamental truth, and see through from their experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Ivy, for very interesting case studies. Now let's go to the Q&A. We were actually very excited to receive a long list of questions, even before the start of this webinar. However, due to the time constraint, I think the speakers are only able to address some of them. Let me read the first question. How do social entrepreneurs raise startup funds for new businesses during the economic downturn? Who will answer first?
Maybe I'll start and then Ivy can chip in. My experience in that is that whether it's an economic downturn or not, if you are solving a particular problem and then you have elevated your progress well, downturn or not, a lot of these family offices and foundations and so on, they will still continuously to invest. In fact, for well-defined social entrepreneurship, economic downturn doesn't really trigger them as much because the people that tend to invest in these companies are not depending on the financial return to invest on these projects. Whereas, traditional entrepreneurship, yes, when we fundraise and so on, the economic cycle really affects us. But I think for social entrepreneurship, a lot of the time during economic downtime, this is when people needed help the most, the community needed help the most. So it's actually easier to mobilize fundraising and so on in these kind of environment if you position your challenges correctly.
For my experience, I'm giving you an example of the UC. So during the economic downturn, I think a lot of factories and manufacturers, they have less demand from the global market. So a lot of factories, they're looking for transitions, like transmissions as well. So one of the biggest investor for UC's case is one of the biggest the bag factories in Shenzhen. So they try to look for more innovative products into the market. So they invested on UC. So working with those big factories or traditional industries and find the angle, and when they want to do the transformation, they probably a way to build your business with them together.
Thank you, Abby and Ted. The second question is, does the rising trend of greenwashing in Singapore affect the fundraising for social entrepreneurship?
Not really at the moment. I think right now with the wave of greenwashing, I think a lot of it makes people more skeptical about businesses are doing good. So people are more asking critical questions about these companies who go out and claim that they're doing good. I think that is good. But from a fundraising perspective, I think right now the general economic downturn is impacting fundraising for sustainability related business. The traditional investors are being a bit more tight, but like Ivy shared earlier, there's actually more opening of strategic investors who see complementary values. Like Ivy said, it can be a factory producer, can be family offices, can be foundation. For them, they're actually actively looking for projects to support, because in this period, more communities need help as well. So I don't think greenwashing in general are affecting the fundraising theme. I think it's good that it's making people asking more genuine questions to understand whether a particular companies claim they're doing social good, are they really doing social good?
Thank you, Ted. Ivy, do you have anything to add on?
No, on this question.
Wonderful. And the third question is quite interesting as well. Should and could social entrepreneurship drive high profitability?
Is this a question for me?
Yeah, either you or Ted can answer.
Would you like to try?
High profitability, I think this is I think at the same time you still need to spend a lot of either on the products and services you deliver to the customers and users, and also you need to spend a lot on the society. I think like Yuka do, as you can see their revenue, the balance sheet, they even open their balance sheet to the public. You see they actually have a lot of like they don't earn a lot of money, but they actually create a huge impact to the society. They have a very small number of group of people and to do the business, but they create a huge impact to the society. So I think it depends on how you see yourself in the business. Either you want to make a lot of profits, or you want to create a bigger social impact. But I don't think these two parts are conflict to each other. I think Tad would also.
I think I can add on to that. I think right now there's a term called waste to resources, similar to the example Ivy just shared. I think high profitability is a very vague term, but I think it could be more profitable, because if you compare let's just use Ivy's the second example. If you use the traditional bag companies, they need to buy raw materials, and then they need to be able to do the rest of the things, marketing, all these. But in the cases where if you're a company who focuses on waste to resources, a lot of the time, instead of buying the raw materials, people actually pay you to take that away from them. This is what we call tipping fees. Because you're offering a service. So not only that you don't have to pay for your raw materials, now you can get paid to build your product. So I think if you structure your problem correctly, I think you can be more profitable than the traditional business, and then still have the social impact.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, actually, for this question, there are two aspects. One is should a social entrepreneur drive high profitability? Because the implication is like people may think a social entrepreneur, you shouldn't go for high profitability. And some people may think high profit is evil, is bad, capitalism, all these things, right? So regarding that, actually, personally, I think another question is if social entrepreneur can achieve high profitability, how would the founders or the executive teams deal with high profitability? Ted,
I think disclosure. I think that's exactly what the first example Ivy brought is good disclosure, right? If you have high profitability, show your customers, show the people who are paying that you are reinvesting this into the community problems. Because as we mentioned, social entrepreneurs often focus on community problems. So if you have profit and if you're reinvesting this profit into these communities, I think you should aim for as much profit as you can, because that also benefits the community.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So Ivy, please.
Yeah, something to add on for the Yoka case, like even they're expanding to more like countries and then getting more profits by like the premium version subscription, but they also need to spend a lot of money on on their skill up technology, because there are more than 1,200 products that every day they need to review. So they need to adopt a new technology or AI to help them to scale up. So how they spend their money and how they try to create like a bigger impact to more countries that are also get attention from the users as well, and they need to create their good images too. So yeah, that's what I want to add on.
Yeah, I can agree more, because social entrepreneurship is always related to or connected to sustainability. So now, Ivy, what you showed is how to make the business sustainable. So high profitability, of course, will help a lot in terms to sustaining the business, right? And also, in order to sustain the business scale up, also need a continuous investment. So
exactly.
Yeah, and also another thing, as Ted mentioned, with the high profitability, you can further contribute to the community and do more, do bigger, do better. Yeah, so all these things will echo back to the impact. Thank you very much. Due to the time, is I think ending 1:31. We start a bit early, a bit later. So yeah, we will take a couple minutes. Thank you very much, Ted and Ivy, for wonderful sharing. We really appreciate it. And also thank you, audience, for your participation in this webinar. Before I end, let me read. So NBS Knowledge Lab is our thought leadership platform where we share research highlights and the latest business insights from our highly regarded faculty, industry partners, and alumni. This is showcased through a series of webinars, videos, research papers, and commentary articles on a wide range of sectors and disciplines.
Cool. Should we let everybody turn on the camera? Let's take a group picture.
Thank you very much. Before I end the session, I also want to highlight your support would be highly appreciated, because after this, there will be a survey form pop up. Please do complete the surveys in order for us to make further improvement, get your feedback for future seminars and kind of workshop and webinars. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.